For centuries, we've been told what is pure and what is sinful, what is allowed and what is forbidden. Somewhere along the way, we severed the human from the divine. We silenced intuition, shamed the sacred, and buried ancient wisdom. But here, we remember. Welcome to the Forbidden Fruit Podcast, an exploration of the mystical, the intuitive, the cosmic forces that weave our existence. This is a soulful sanctuary where we embrace the strange and unusual and use it as fuel to reclaim the magic, restore the sacred, and discover ultimate truth. Come and share your stories in a space where fierce hearts and fantastical gifts are not only welcomed, but needed. So take a bite. You were never meant to be forbidden. Welcome to the Forbidden Fruit Podcast. We are your hosts, Jeanette St.Germain and Catherine Kells. In today's episode, we learn what it means to be the eye in the hurricane. We explore how to navigate collective consciousness, empathy, and intuition. We dive deep into personal stories of compassionate witnessing and visions of Jesus, powerful reminders that we are indeed divinely human.
Are you of the thoughts, or do you align with the thoughts that there's people that are interested in working towards the ascension process and those that are trying to hold people back? Does that resonate?
Yes and no.
Okay, where's the no? What piece?
Because, so we talked about
And by
ascension.
people, I don't mean like,
Yeah.
it could be just energies.
That's the no. Because for me, I don't think that people really understand much. I think there's certain energies that do. I think there are certain consciousness waves that are actively trying to hold on to whatever image of power they think is there. And I believe that those of us that are on an ascension path, ascension meaning evolving consciousness, okay, evolving beyond this idea that we're human beings and we're just 3D meat suits and we live and we die and that's it. Ascension, as in we are more than human. We are souls having a human experience, and we have access to things like energy healing and bilocation and telepathy and remote viewing and prophetic dreaming and all kinds of things. And I know we've done a big podcast about ascension and the process of ascension, but just in case our listeners haven't heard that episode, they're welcome to go and look at that as well. But in a nutshell, ascension, yes, we're evolving as a humanity, our consciousness evolving out of the space of me, myself, and I, out of the space that is anchored in fear and lack, like there's not enough for everyone to survive and thrive. I believe we're moving as a collective into this energy of unity. We, us, togetherness, an energy of unconditional love, an energy of being able to communicate through our hearts. And it's not about power, it's about empowerment. It's about balancing our sovereignty, our uniqueness with the oneness that we all are, right? We get to be individual and we get to be part of this tapestry, this collective energy that creates something new. So yes, I do believe there are energies and they are coming through people and groups of people that want that not to occur, because when people are stuck in the me, myself, and I, us versus them, fear-based mentality, it's much easier to control the masses. And I believe that those energies that want to keep humanity's consciousness unevolved, I believe they actually have forgotten their own connection to the divine. So they need to siphon energy off of others in order to survive. So there's an energy, I believe, that controls the masses in order to siphon energy. And their main tools of doing that is fear and oppression. And so I believe there's that dynamic happening. I also zoom out from there as well and recognize that everything is part of the divine plan and every person has to choose for themselves the red pill or the blue pill, right? Like we have to
Mhm.
choose how we're going to evolve. And I don't believe that there's like, just giving that Matrix reference, I don't believe that there is the one, right? I don't believe there's a savior that's going to come fix things and make things better. Like each individual has to choose it for themselves. And in fact, when we believe in the savior complex, it's like we're giving our power away to another level of something beyond ourselves without recognizing that we have the ability to see there is no fucking spoon, right? Each one of us has that. So,
Well,
okay, that was a
and
really
I
long-winded
think,
answer.
well, that's okay. We'll come back to the other part in a minute, but I want to talk about this, the whole idea of the savior. So I have a little different perspective of how, like, the whole reason why we had an embodiment of a savior, such as Jesus, that came and had a physical experience. I don't think that that happened to say, here, I'm coming back and I'm going to do it again for you. I think the whole reason why that happened was both it was needed in that time frame to help the people in that moment in that way because that's what it was needed. But to go and plant that seed and say the concept of there will be a coming back, that idea. And I don't think it's a very literal thing, like, hey, one individual is coming back to fix everything. I believe that situation and that embodiment occurred to set the model so that you could see the path. You could be given a roadmap and put inside your cells so that thousands of years later, when the right time, it activates within you and you say, oh, I was shown one way of ascension. And it is through these specific teachings to help learn and understand how to become and embody that within myself so that I can activate that and I can be one of the sparks that light up. And then the next person is doing the same, the next person is doing the same. And all of that encompasses this remembrance of oneness, remembrance of unity, remembrance of connection of that everyone has. And I want to take that one step deeper. So you have that concept of the second coming, which is literally everyone gets to do it this time, not just one. And it's not starting over from scratch. It's, oh, here's where you are now. And now you get to remember, hey, you've had this the whole time. And once you realize that, and once you realize that everyone has access to this, then you start to question oftentimes. I've heard this with countless people. You start to realize, wait a second, there are these energies that feel like they are intentionally trying to separate us, intentionally trying to create division, so that instead of us following that path of ascension, that path of unity, we say, oh, well, you're different. I can't talk to you, or you have a different party. You look different. You speak different. You have whatever difference, doesn't matter. Your thoughts are different than mine. So I can't be, I can't even discuss what it is because it's not okay. Instead of what the whole process that we're trying to do is come together and say, oh, I acknowledge you're different. That's great because you're another version of life. And isn't that beautiful? And while it's interesting because I was doing this training recently talking about diversity. Um, and it was so interesting because they were talking about how 99% of everyone is the same. And the level of diversity is that little 1% of who you are, of hair color, of preferences, of where you live, how you live, whatever. It's really that little teeny piece of you.
Your
You still
personality.
love your personality. Yes,
Yeah.
you still love the same. You still want to have a family, whatever that looks like. You still want to grow and to become more and you want to feel safe. You want to have all these things that everyone is it's the whole understanding of what life is very
Mm,
similar. You get to decide the details. That's your little 1%,
yeah.
but all these things are within you and you're all the same. So, yes, differences are great. They actually make us interesting. So we're not all bored with each other because it's funny. There's this really little kids book that I love. by Mr. Rogers, and it's called something about like if we were all purple. And it's this planet where everybody, like all these purple bears, I think it is, and how it was so boring. And just this idea that everyone has to be the same. And so it was emphasizing how differences actually make us interesting and fun, but underneath we are all the same. So instead of focusing on that one little teeny tiny percent of who we are, which is what the old energies have wanted us to do, and that's how they held us in power, or under their power, excuse me, that if we really focus on that 99%, that is where our power is. That is how we reclaim our birthright of who we are, that thousands of years ago, one individual went through this process to show us the way, or a way, not the only way, but one way of doing this, of getting through this ascension and becoming more and reconnecting with the unified field. That all we have to do is stop and take a moment and think, wait a second, this is actually beautiful. Just because you like certain things or you want to do certain things or you don't want things, those details aren't important. You still love, you still feel, you still care, and you just want to feel safe.
Yes. Yes, so much. I I agree with you. The whole savior complex, it's such an interesting button that I push within myself. I My understanding of it is that um Jesus is one of the avatars that was able to hold the frequency of unconditional love and the frequency of his divine self, right? His higher self consciousness in a human form, which is what we're all trying to do on this ascension path. So, like you're saying, it's not just one person, it's all of us get the opportunity to do this. And also the planet herself. Like we could really go down a rabbit hole here because I believe the planet has a consciousness and that she's choosing to go through this evolutionary process of evolving consciousness and shifting in vibration because to me everything is frequency. Everything. It's energy, it's frequency, it's light, it's sound, it's the lack of light or sound, right? It's free, everything is energy, everything is frequency. So to me, Jesus was holding a specific frequency to help evolve consciousness. And he was a teacher in that way, an example of how to evolve consciousness. So yes, I had this image of him in a meditation. Like I was asking spirit about Jesus and different things a few years ago. And they were showing me that Jesus was like carving this golden path. There was this golden path from a representational ball of the earth up through the sky, up through these dimensional realms of darkness. There was like these shrouds of darkness around the earth, and darkness not as in evil or anything like that, but just darkness as in the veil of forgetting that we are also divine. We are human. We are divinely human, right? And there's a veil of forgetting that has been placed as a frequency band around the earth, around the human experience. And there's a whole nother rabbit hole we can dive into about that and where that came from. But just to kind of keep it tied into the savior complex, I saw Jesus walking through as a figure, moving through the veils of the darkness with this path of golden light. And he basically created this path. And because of his frequency and his ability to shift between his physical and non-physical consciousness, that path of golden light stayed. And it stayed as basically, here's a road if you want to follow it, right? Here's a road out of the veil of forgetting. Here's a way to ascend your awareness. And the whole idea of the second coming of Christ, right? You touched on this. I feel that that's a return of Christ consciousness within each of us, right? It's a frequency that is bathing the planet. It is a frequency that we all have access to. So no, I don't believe this man that so many people consider a god or godlike or the son of God, give it a label. I don't think this figure is going to descend from the clouds and point at certain groups of people and say, you are righteous, you get to come to heaven, and the rest of you get to stay here and burn. It's like, what? I just don't feel that is the truth for me. And so, yeah, he gave an example of how to move through. And I agree with you. I just have it as a visual a little differently, but yeah, everything that you're saying, I totally agree with. And isn't that beautiful? Right. And he is just one avatar that's given us a pathway. There are many avatars on the planet right now teaching about love, teaching about frequency and consciousness. You and I are doing it, right? So, yay, let's do that and let's have fun doing that. I have an awareness of, yes, it's beautiful that we're all not purple, right? Mm-hmm. I tell my kids this all the time, like how boring it would be if the only flavor of ice cream was vanilla, right? There's so many amazing flavors. And they say to me, but Mom, vanilla is really good. I'm like, you're right, vanilla is really good. But what if there weren't sprinkles or chocolate or caramel or all the little candy pieces or strawberries to put on top? What if it was just vanilla ice cream and that's all you got? And then we've had these conversations about, well, would it even matter if that's all we knew, right? What if all we knew was vanilla and we didn't know there was something else that could potentially be better? Then we might be scared if something new suddenly came in and said, hey, put this on your vanilla ice cream, right? So understanding that, yes, these differences are beautiful, but not everyone is going to see it that way. That's the place where I think that crevice in my being that I was sensing, that cracking open. There are so many people that see the differences, that small little 1% of us that are actually different. I agree. They see the differences as something to be afraid of, something to run away from, something to oppress and control, or even defile. And that's where I'm like, I just want to shake people and say, wake up, like, wake up. I am you, you are me. What the heck are you doing? And at the same time, I can't do that. I have to honor that each has their path, each has their experience. And at the same time, I will not go silently when I see injustice or when I see others being harmed because they are not allowed to exist in a world that has forgotten how to love, in a world that has forgotten our differences make it so much more fun. And so I know I'm tapping into all of that as I'm having these energies and visions coming through me. And I'm aware of that. I'm in this place of like, how do I balance? I feel like I'm on a tightrope. Like, how do I balance this place of truly believing in love and unconditional love and authenticity and not be passive in the fierceness of my love? How do we safeguard the sacredness of the temple, right? Like my body, my energy, my heart is sacred. And I will not let someone into my temple with muddy boots. That idea of thou shalt not trespass. So when I see things happening that are literally trespassing against someone else's soul, the very essence of them, to me, life is sacred. How can we trample on it as if it is nothing? I know a lot of us are feeling this way, and I'm not afraid to speak it.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I think that there's a layer of, like you were saying, how do you be okay with this when these injustices occur and people are being trampled on?
I'm not okay with it, but what's the way to be loving in it?
So for me, I take a look at it slightly different. So some people look and say, oh, I want to fix this and I want to make it better. What if, like, I keep looking at whenever I have something going on in my family or ever I see something happening, the very first thing I do is I look within myself and I say, first of all, what part of me isn't healed? What part of me is calling this in? and allowing this. So I firm up my boundaries, remembering who I am, that I focus and I remember where my connection is and what is the most important thing, and that is my connection to Creator, however that looks for me. And there isn't a right answer to any of these things either. You know, whatever your process is your process, that's fine. But that's an important distinction. So then I look and I say, I can't change and interfere with someone else's free will, because if they are allowing an injustice, even by simply all they do is complain about it, or they just say this is wrong, or whatever their reaction is in that moment to whatever the injustice is. If you look and you say, you know what? I am going to shine my light so bright that all that is injustice fades away. However, every single person has the right to decide for them what is their injustice, what is right and not right for them. So by holding and containing yourself within your boundaries of where you don't allow this in your existence. So whatever's happening, you don't allow that to take, or you don't allow yourself to take that in. And you don't allow people to do things to you that you don't approve of. Again, also remembering that the underlying idea of all this is that you harm no one, including yourself. So if you're focused because you realize that everyone is all interconnected and we are all unified on that soul level, you wouldn't want to harm another person because you're really just harming a piece of yourself. So going back to that, holding that's within yourself, remembering that the most important thing is holding the light and remembering who you are and knowing that all else that is not that and that is not filled with love and connection and light has to fade away. You'll start to realize those injustices don't seem that big of a deal, because they're not if you don't focus on them, because focusing on them and trying to have like the war on whatever is just really calling that into your life.
It's the same energy.
It is the same energy. And
Mhm.
you know, whether you say I love this or I hate this, you are still putting the same amount of energy towards that thing. Therefore, you're calling it within yourself.
Well, and you're creating an attachment to it.
Correct.
So then it's not unconditional love. This was something that Spirit was actually like schooling me on just yesterday, right? Because I was asking about all these things that I'm seeing and feeling. And like you said, I do the same practice. I center in myself. I look at what's going on in me. What do I not like? What am I wanting to change, etc. I don't have the desire to fix it. I know there's a lot of people that do, including in my own family. So it gets really interesting. My family thinks I'm like this passive, hippie tree hugger that will never fight for anything until I get angry. Then they think I'm a raging bear and I'll burn the whole world down. So I'm like, well, which is it? You know?
Those are kind of mutually exclusive.
But I am a complex being and I can hold all of these emotions, right? And so it's interesting. I do what you're saying, and it's also what I share with my clients to do, right? Like, come back to yourself, stay in your own lane, even though we know that we're still connected to everyone else, and focus your energy on holding the vision and embodying the thing you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see. Hold the vision of love and unity and connectedness of us all coming together. That is the vision that needs some fuel, right? We have plenty of people holding the vision of, oh my God, the world's burning, we're all going to die. We have plenty of people holding that vision. So let's offset that a little bit by giving it another choice. It's just another option. And we have to be careful because we don't want to bypass, right? Especially in spiritual circles, there's this spiritual bypassing that happens. Well, it's not good. It doesn't feel good. So I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to bury my head in the sand and I'm going to pretend it's not there. And I'm going to do it under the guise of keeping my vibration high And I'm going to do it under the guise of I've got to protect and preserve my energy, right? And there is some truth there, right? Like, I don't want to watch the news and listen to all the talking heads and do all the things because it drains me. It drains me to go into those spaces. And I know that about myself. So I just don't go into those spaces. At the same time, I choose for me to have a little bit of an awareness of what's going on because I need to know the contrast to what it is I want or don't want. Right. But some people, like a really dear friend of mine, love her to pieces. But we were talking about the recent election and she's like, oh yeah, I don't even know like who's really running. I'm not voting. I'm not registered to vote. I'm not doing any of this. I just don't focus my energy on it at all. And part of me was like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I wish I had that life. If I lived by myself, I probably would. Right. And she's like, I'm focusing on building my life. I'm building my healing practice. I'm building this current of helping people transform their lives in a way that is supportive, loving, and nourishing. Okay. And I love that. That's beautiful for her. But at the same time, as wanting to do that, I also realize that to me, that doesn't seem realistic. It feels like bypassing, even though to her, it's protecting her energy. And she is fully focused on the thing that she wants to create. Then I'm like, well, what happens when all these things that are happening in the collective, because we're not a one-man island, we're not by ourselves, there are certain things occurring that are going to affect her, right? And she won't even know what's happening. She may get blindsided. I mean, that's up to her. Whatever happens, happens. And as I was sitting with this questioning in my mind, like, which path, spirit, like, oh my gosh, what's right for me, right? I'm looking at these different options of how to manage my energy. Spirit was just saying to me, you always have the choice to respond in each moment. Have the choice, take the choice, respond. If something challenging occurs for you or your friend or whoever, because of something they did or did not know, something that they weren't playing in, okay, they will respond to it when it shows up to them. That's it. And I was like, well, what if, these things about reproductive rights affect her daughter and then like different specifics, right? And I was talking to my husband about it and he's like, well, people that don't engage, they're giving their power away. They're giving their power away. They're letting someone else decide for them. And I'm like, but are they? Sounds like they're maintaining their power within themselves by not engaging in the circus. So I'm having these like dualistic two wings of the same bird, right? Two wings of the same bird energies coming through me. And in all of it, spirit's just like, be, center, breathe, focus on what you want to create, be aware, be discerning, and choose what you actually allow into your energy. You can choose what comes into your energy without ignoring that it's existing. And that's the kind of balance point I came to. You can be the eye in the hurricane. And that's the thing that actually was a teaching that comes to me from Jesus. He showed me this years ago. Be the eye in the hurricane. And I was in this meditation where I was on this ocean that was frozen. And all around were these storm clouds and lightning and hurricane level winds and just crazy chaotic storm energies. And at the very center where I was sitting, Jesus was standing beside me in my meditation. And we had this little bubble of the most exquisite peace and love. And we could look in every direction, 360 degrees, all around us. We could see above us. We could look down below us. We could see what was churning underneath the frozen water. We could see through it. And we could see the storms coming and whipping around and breaking up the frozen water and pulling, the fish and different animals up into the air, and they're flying and flailing around. And I'm just like, wow. And he was teaching me, be in this center space of peace. These things outside of you have no effect on you unless you let them. That doesn't mean you pretend they don't exist. You are here to be human, to walk the path of whatever your life is. So go into those places where it seems dark and full of despair and be the light. Have the hope, have the faith, be the hope and have the faith that your light is stronger than anything that might seek to dim it. And so that's the message. I keep coming back to that as I'm in my head feeling push and pulled in all these directions. Anyway.
And I look at the idea of when you hold the frequency, and it isn't bypassing because you're not ignoring the truth of what reality is around you. But you hold that vision of who you are and what your innate connection is. And of course, everyone has this. It's not exclusive. But when you hold that within yourself and you're able to walk through your day, you're able to walk through, you see pictures of like a battlefield or a city ravaged by plague and despair. And you can walk through those situations and hold utter compassion for each and every one of those individuals' experiences for what they are going for. And you look at them and you see them for where they're at, whatever level, whatever choice that they've made in their life. And you see that and you hold compassion because you do feel it. But it's different from feeling it and noticing and being aware versus taking it within and allowing it to change you and to alter your frequency as a result of your awareness. But you hold that and you see that and you have compassion and you choose to maintain your light and you choose to be stable and calm and present in the moment when you see and experience those things and the interactions that you have that may be difficult, but you also aren't taking that within yourself because you remember and you have compassion because of the very, very simple fact that at one point you've been in their shoes. You've been exactly where they're at. You've had very similar details, maybe not in this lifetime, maybe in this one, but you see a piece of yourself within those individuals that are struggling, that are going through the traumas, the difficult experiences, the crises, and you hold compassion for them and honor their choices. You honor who they are in the path that they chose to come here and be and experience. That, holding that light within yourself while still experiencing and witnessing the world around you in that hurricane, that is like the ultimate of having that presence and holding that light and connecting yourself to Creator to remember who you are. And in doing that, you are also paving the way for every single person that experiences you and gets to see you, whether or not they understand it, whether or not they're even aware of it on a conscious mental level. They feel it because the energy doesn't lie. The energy is the truth of all that there is. So when you stand in that light, you show the next layer of individuals, wait, this is possible. And you show them that there is a way forward. And that is that understanding of what does it mean to walk each other home.
Yeah, I love that. It's been sitting with how do I do that more, right? What are the things that help us as humans to have more presence, to have compassion without it meaning that we have to align with a certain story or viewpoint. And this is part of what Spirit was even showing me yesterday. I was asking about unconditional love. And we have all these stories, these expectations, these rules of engagement just in our everyday lives, and then also as society. And to truly walk with that presence, that ultimate compassion, to really love, it means I don't love you because of anything. It just means love. Love exists as a presence, as an awareness, as a current of energy that helps things to grow and to be created. And so there's this idea that I have, and I don't know if I can fully express it with words because it's so deep. Like this is where I landed yesterday after all my spirals. Love just is. It doesn't matter what someone does or doesn't do, what they say or don't say, what they believe or don't believe. It doesn't matter. And I'm able to just love. I don't love them as an individual because that means I'm creating an attachment to something that they are or something that they're not. Do you see? I just love. And so that's the training to love, to simply love, to see the beloved in all that is reflected back at you, and to be able to love even the things that we might hate. And that's been a really deep teaching. And I had that come up in my first ayahuasca journey, which is a plant medicine, a sacred ceremony with a shaman and this whole thing. But the message of that ceremony, as the medicine took me through basically like the 9 circuits of hell. It's such an interesting experience. But she kept saying in the journey, can you love this? Can you love this? As she's showing me the atrocities of humanity, of beings that aren't human, of all the things that I couldn't even imagine some of the things I was seeing. And then she was showing me that exists is also me, and kept asking, can you love this? And I thought that it meant at the time that if I loved it, that meant I had to embrace it. I had to bring it into myself. I had to be nourished by it or nourish it. I had to love it in a certain way, the action of love. But that's not what she was saying. Years later, centering to where I'm at now, realizing that love is not in the grabbing on or even the letting go. It's not in the action of the expression of the thing that we want to have or we don't want to have. Love is the presence of allowing life to be what it is. And then we can focus our own loving presence in whatever way in our lives help us to create and allow love to flow through us as a channel, as a vessel. Then we can have actions that are loving, that can create through love. But it gets really, really tricky, especially as humans, with this perception of me, myself, and I, and you're over there, right? Like we have these separate manifestations or seemingly separate manifestations.
And I
It
love that
gets
you
tricky.
bring,
Go ahead.
Mhm. I love that you bring that up, that loving the darkness. So it's so easy to perceive the darkness as negative. And again, no one is saying that you should embrace it and call it into you and then come from that place in your actions. But I believe that all that is dark, considered dark and heavy, and those that in the past have tried to control the people, that they are doing so out of fear, just like the people's response of acknowledging differences. You're doing that out of fear because you don't understand it. And because you are forgetting that 99% of who you are is that connection, which also means that 99% of who you are is also the same as those who are considered of the darkness. Because looking at the energies that are heavier, they are just not potentiated. They are not aware and able to experience that lightness because of their choices, because of whatever reason. But that doesn't inherently mean that they are bad. No, you don't allow them in your space if that's not right for you. But that doesn't mean that there has to be a judgment of who they are, of what is acceptable or not acceptable. It's just not for you. There's a very, very big difference because the more that you try to push it away, that more that comes into you because you're creating those cords and attachments. But by coming from a totally neutral point and you're just saying, I see you, no cords get formed. And you come from that place of love and you say, I understand where you're at. I understand that you don't see another way of doing things. That's okay. Because you realize within yourself at one point, others would have judged you that way too. At one point, others would have seen you and said, well, you're bad, or you're of the darkness, whatever. Because every single one of us at some point in this lifetime or in all the millions of other previous lifetimes that you've been, all those versions of energy of who you always have been, has been everything. You have been of the light. You have been the savior. You have been all of those in the middle. And the one thing that is being asked of you now is just to embrace that unity of understanding and remember who you are.
It's so interesting as you're sharing this. I want to poke a little bit at it just to share something that comes up for me around this. I agree with you. There's something about that energy of I understand. Because here's the thing, I don't understand. And I don't want to understand certain things. That doesn't mean that, how do I say that? No, that's not right. I guess what I'm trying to say is I see this with, you know, people that are having conflict resolution or they're trying to be trauma informed and they'll say things about, I understand your experience. And whenever that happens to me, I feel this little like poking at me. I feel like it's disempowering. Even though as human beings, we all want to be seen and heard and understood, right? We really do want to be understood. But when someone says, I understand, and I'm in a place of darkness, a place of being activated and triggered, and like my fangs want to come out, right? Because I feel scared and I want to protect myself, which is that energy that we're talking about, right? The energy that's forgotten that it has its own power, the energy that has forgotten that it is love. When something outside of it comes and witnesses it, and then chooses to engage by saying, I understand, it feels to me like that other is somehow putting themselves above me, like they're judging me from their high tower. This is just how it shows up in my system.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this with clients that I've worked with as well. If I say to them, I understand you, a lot of times they'll be like, no, you don't. You're not me. You don't understand me. Stop trying to be me. It becomes a trigger. Okay. So what I've learned, it's not about understanding. It's not about me seeing myself in them. It's about me just seeing them. Just seeing them. That's it. The moment I'm trying to understand them, I'm creating an attachment. I'm creating an engagement between me and them and my perception of who they are. My perception of them can never be the truth of what they're actually experiencing because I'm not them, right? They have their own unique expression. So if I say I understand, even if I 99% understand them, there's still that 1% that is them that I cannot fully understand unless I am fully them. Do you see? And so I go into that space of when I'm faced with the darkness within myself or in society or in anything, right? When the hurricane is raging around me or inside, I don't seek to understand it. I just seek to witness it, to allow it to exist, to have its moment, to just create safe space with no judgment, no expectation, no need to change it or make it something it's not, because I don't understand it fully. I don't understand how people can murder children. I don't understand how women can be raped. I don't understand. I don't. What I do see, what I witness, is people forgetting themselves, people forgetting love, forgetting their power, acting out in fear. But for me at least, I don't understand certain things, but that doesn't mean I can't love it. And I know you're not saying that. I'm just picking out that word.
No, it's fine. And I'm not saying that you have to understand why someone made a specific individual choice, such as to create such atrocity to harm another individual. I'm not saying that piece that I understand. But if you take it that step back, that core, why would someone get to that breaking point? That I understand that there can be those big things that have happened to them. I understand that there's the intensity of getting to that point where you're saying that I have no other choice. Not saying that that choice is acceptable, but just taking that step back and saying, I get it, that people are pushed every day to a breaking point where they believe from their understanding that they have no other choice. And by saying, I understand that in that moment you were doing your best, even though society will say that what you did was wrong, which I acknowledge is wrong. But taking that step and saying, I get it, that you in that moment believed there was no other choice. That is that acceptance and that healing and that knowing that I'm not going to push against that. I won't be a part of that. But acknowledging that that is everyone's free will to make those choices. I don't understand the details of the perspective that you are, but I understand that everyone is doing their best with whatever their circumstances in any given moment. Nobody wants to just wake up and say, I'm going to do 1,000 horrible things today. What's on my list first? No one does that. That's not who they are. No one. But what is happening is that every single day people experience these heavy things and they don't have the tools to process them. They don't know that there's another way because maybe that's what they grew up with and that's what their parents grew up with and their parents. And it's been so generational that there's not even a thread of awareness that there is another way. And I understand that as well.
Yes. You understand the disconnect and the forgetting.
Yes.
Yeah. And that I totally understood that. I knew
I
that's
know
what you
you
were saying.
understood.
Understood. Yeah. It's just, I work a lot with people that have a lot of trauma. And so I don't want to, I don't know, certain words said in certain ways. It's just something to be aware of, at least for me. Like I'm just very aware of it in my daily work. Um, but yeah, like that's the compassion piece, right? That you're speaking of, like understanding that we all go into those places of forgetting love, forgetting our power. We all know what fear feels like. So understanding that, because that is part of the human condition, part of those things that we are the same in. Right. So yes, I hope I didn't create misunderstanding by
Misunderstanding about
poking
the
at things.
understanding.
Right.
No, and it makes sense. It's not so much, I guess I used a word that could have been upgraded or not, or whatever. But
I think it's all
to
perfect.
to realize that in that understanding, it's not so much that I am judging an individual's experience. It's more that I see that. I see and I acknowledge it for what it is. I don't share in the same experiences or the same comprehension or the same choices, but I see it. And I acknowledge others for having that experience. That's what I shortened into the statement of I understand when that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we all do.
Hmm.
It's less so
It's
much of a judgment as an awareness of I get it.
yeah. And I see that and I so appreciate you playing in my little sandbox. Because I do, that's part of my filter system based on my own experiences that when someone expresses understanding, I can feel if they really understand. I can feel it if I'm being witnessed and acknowledged and accepted. That to me is what understanding means. I witness you, I acknowledge, I accept that this is how you feel without inserting their own judgments or their own stories into my experience. And this is a theme that I've had throughout my life, especially being super intuitive and sensitive and judged for having these gifts of spirit. Like I'm very, very sensitive to that energy of judgment, and I can spot it a mile away. And when someone says something that on the surface sounds kind and loving and sweet, I can see right to the core of that and be like, don't put your shit on me. Because I have a framework of spiritual persecution. So understanding should be truly understanding, which I do feel with you. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Holy moly. And I know there are people that are going to be listening to this like, oh my gosh, these two ladies are just having so much fun in the crazy land. But yeah, there's a difference between understanding and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something for us as people that support evolving consciousness to be aware of, to be discerning, to look deeper than the rhetoric and the words and the propaganda and the bullshit that we're constantly being fed that's just there to try to take our power. And if we're really discerning, not only of what's around us, but who we are within ourselves, then we're going to know what feels loving and supportive, what really feels nourishing, what feels true and authentic. But if we can't look deeper, if we can't look between the words, if we can't discern the energy behind the words, we are going to get hoodwinked constantly. And that's what I see happening. And it's fascinating and frustrating because you've got sides blaming other sides, mad about the energy of being mad, blaming each other for the exact same things, being afraid of the exact same things, but perpetrated by the other side. And I'm just like, what the heck? How is no one seeing this?
Well,
Right?
and
Like,
that's the
where
thing.
is our level of discernment?
I think a lot of people are seeing it. They just don't know what to do with that information. Where do you go from there? Because in seeing it, you realize such a huge percentage of the population is doing that. So where do you go from there? Where do you find those individuals or those groups of people that aren't doing that, that are focusing on the connection? And a lot of them are quiet. They're silent. and they're allowing others to be in their space to have their experience, which is beautiful. But that's where it's harder to identify who they are and to find those like-minded individuals. And that's where it's so important that instead of just doing something or saying something in response to how others are having that experience of separation, and that you focus on who you are and shining who you are, your light within yourself, and that I see what is experiencing. Because the more that that happens, the light is attracted to the light. Everything is attracted to the light because it is the ultimate connection of oneness. You will find those you are meant to communicate with, to work with, to have further experiences with, because that is the light connecting with itself, like a magnet asking to find its connections. It will. But it all starts with coming back to yourself and standing within your truth. And you don't have to tell anyone that you're aware of these things. It's just within you. You can. That's all your choice. But it's all standing in who you are and remembering who you are and your innate connection and why you are here. And then focusing on that everyone is at some stage in their awakening awareness of this process, doing the exact same thing. And then very quickly, you will start to realize that each and every single person is an opportunity to work with them, to communicate with them, to shine your light towards them, and then see what happens. Do they shine it back? Do they not even see it? All of it's okay.
Yeah, it's I guess it's the question that I would like to wrap up with. How do we be the light? How do we be love? How do we accept all the parts of ourselves and each other and move forward in this world, creating something new? And this is a conversation I have with myself. And I talk with my daughter a lot about this. She's very interested in different forms of politics and social structures. And she's reading all kinds of books, just filling her mind at the intellectual level. And we've had conversations where she gets really frustrated at me because she sees me talking about love and community and collaboration. And my version of creating the current of change is meditation or energy work or connecting with my intuition, connecting with my higher guidance, and then being an example in the world, in the community that I'm building, and joining with those of like mind, like spirit, like heart, and also honoring the path of those that aren't in resonance, right? That's okay too. But she gets frustrated because she wants me to have the megaphone and the sign and the picket fence and the protest marches and be an activist and change the system from within and fight against it. And I've tried to explain that that just isn't for me. There are those that are called to that level of activity. And I don't need to protest something. I don't need to be in resistance to something. And for me, I don't change it from within. I create a new path. For me, I have that vision of Jesus creating that golden path through the darkness, right? Like that feels more in alignment for me to create another choice. So while we have communities that are coming together in fear, anger, and hate, we also have communities coming together in love and joy and celebration and hope and anchored to equality and freedom. And that's my way of creating that change. And another thing I've said to my daughter, she's one of my greatest teachers. I love it. We can't have change in society as a whole, in a collective sphere, unless we create change at the individual level, which you and I have talked about a lot, right? Creating consciousness shifts within the self is required before we can even begin to create something out in the world as a community. So for myself individually, I have a meditation practice. I have an energy clearing practice. I have a practice of building community at my center. We do outreach, we do charity, we do free events where people can come in and feel safe to be themselves. I love to create sanctuary for people to tap into these parts of themselves that they've forgotten, that they didn't even know was there. And maybe it was there, but then they felt persecuted, so they shut it down, right? I want to create, and I am creating those safe spaces. So I do it within myself, and then I do it within community. I'd love to hear, like, what is it that you do to create that shift in your day-to-day life? What would you tell our listeners is something they can do besides meditation and energy work and finding others like you, like giving back and being of service, all those things? Is there anything for you that is just really helpful?
I think for me, seeking out the opportunities to focus on what you want to create. Because there's this whole process of you clearing out yourself, you going through these healing processes. That's the beginning. Like everyone thinks, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is my journey, is to heal myself. Fantastic. Great, do that. But then there's some point when you're like, okay, I've been doing this how many years now? And now what? And that's when you have that opportunity to move forward in that next level, that next iteration of who you want to be. And that's where you take all that healing and all that coming back to yourself and that centering, having those rituals that you do daily or weekly to connect with yourself and to connect with the community around you, however that looks. And you take that and you say, here's what I want to be. When you're stepping into that level of being a conscious creator. So you're focusing on the things that you want in your life. You are calling those in, and you're doing that by taking inspired action into where you are right now. So at your job, at whatever activities you do, the people that you meet in the grocery store, at the bank, wherever you are going, you might smile. You might have a lighthearted conversation. You might notice something like, that's a nice shirt. With no expectation, you have no idea how much that changes the frequency for individuals with no expectation of returning any or getting anything in return. They don't have to even acknowledge you said it. They don't have to like that you said that they have a nice shirt. They don't have to. You can smile at them and they can scowl at you. Who cares? What is all that matters is that you are calling in and you are putting that frequency out there. You're putting in the piggy bank of the universe. One good coin, another good coin, another one. And the universe will return in perfect divine timing all of that you have built up in that piggy bank. But the thing is, the more that you do that, and my kids absolutely hate the fact that I have on the wall in our living room an embroidered image of the golden rule of what you want to see. They really don't like it because I get to point to it all the time. But if you put out there what you want to see and how others are treating you. So if you want to have a good experience, you want to have happiness and joy, well, then that's your inspired action. You're saying this type of thing feels good to me. Let's create some joy for someone else. Now, they don't have to like it. Like I said, they don't have to like the fact that you commented on their shirt. Hopefully you're not creepy doing it. Just be like something nice, like, hey, oh, what a beautiful shirt. I love your hair, something funny. Or like,
Oh.
isn't this experience silly? Just something happy to show and put that out there. And then give that opportunity for the universe to return that. It totally changes everything because you start to become a conscious creator and then put it out there. Have a vision board, jot down notes of what you want to see your life to be going forward. Have those plans of what do you want your 5 years to look like. Now, if it happens, that's fantastic. But don't be surprised if Creator gives you so much more. Don't limit your experience to whatever it is that you think,
Mm.
because Creator has such a huge plan for you. And by aligning with those happiness and the joy of things, again, you're not ignoring that heavy things happen, but you're choosing to focus and to put your time and your energy, because your time and your energy is the most important thing. So you're choosing to put your time and your energy towards something good that moves you forward and in alignment with the goals and the joys that you have in life. Then the universe has no other choice but to return that to you. And that literally is the golden rule.
That's so interesting. So it's basically just ripple effects of kindness,
Absolutely.
ripple effects of helping where it's called for, right? And I
Hmm.
love the idea of the golden rule, but I like to take it a step further because the
Of
golden
course you do.
rule, I always do. I'm sorry, but I'm not. Sorry,
Don't be
not sorry.
sorry.
The golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, right?
Hmm.
And I never really thought about that really deeply until I did. um, and shifted it into again one of my daughter's things. She says, "Mom, it shouldn't be the golden rule; it should be the platinum rule." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And she says, "Treat others the way they want to be treated. Don't do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because then you are assuming you know what is loving and kind and helpful to another person. You're inserting yourself into their experience." And I just was like, oh, crap. She's right. And at the same time,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with being kind and loving to others. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to walk around, at the grocery store or at the bank saying, "I'd really like to be kind to you right now. Is that okay? Would you be okay with me being kind to you right now?" Like, come on. So there's these are all just frameworks that we get to play in. There is no hard and set rules on anything. But I will say, as you were talking about kindness and the golden rule, it for me, it creates this ripple effect. I see that energy, a ripple effect of kindness. And we know the difference between being kind and being a jerk. Like most
Hmm.
people know that. So kindness matters.
Hmm. Well, and also when you're looking to have an interaction with someone and you want it to be following this golden rule of how you want to be treated, well, of course, you want to be treated in a way that you feel receptive to receiving. So you can pick it apart and you can look at it and you could say, well, you have to first take into account that's already built in. That is already built into that. Because when you treat someone in a certain way of how you want to be treated, you want to have someone acknowledge who you are. So you have to take that into account when you're treating others in that way. So if someone says, I want a small cup, and you hand them a big cup and you say, well, I'm treating you the way I wanted you to be treated. And it's like, but that's not what I wanted. And it's okay. And it's just that allowing and that understanding that you're coming from your space and your understanding, and you're doing your best, and it's okay. And you're trying.
It's about intention and openness, right? And we're also talking about things that can be picked apart to death, and then we're just stuck in a little spiral of our own making. And I'm aware of this. This is what my mind does. Um,
Yep.
but it comes from that place of caring. It comes from a place of an intentional, conscious way of living my life. And in the end, I understand that I'm going to piss people off. And I'm also going to be an example of love. Like, that's not my thing to carry, right? How
Mm.
others perceive me is not my business. What's my business is what is my intention. What am I open to? If somebody does get offended by something I say or do, am I open to having a conversation about that? Or am I completely closed off to the idea that I could be wrong? It's just how do we show up in those spheres? So I love all of that. I love that you have that in your living room. It's basically just
Oh.
be kind, right? It's like, I love Mr. Rogers. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers. I learned so much from Mr. Rogers. Thank God for that man, right? Like,
Mhm.
because I didn't see it in my everyday life and in my childhood. I didn't see the kindness and compassion and respect that I feel at my core and I always have. But when he said things like, look for the helpers, right?
Oh,
And if
that's
you,
my favorite.
I
Hmm.
love that. And if you can't find the helpers, be one, right?
Hmm.
Like we have the power to create the change we want to see. Every single person has that.
Hmm.
So I think that's beautiful.
It is. It's always an opportunity.
Yes. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for
for
today.
being here. Yes, I love this conversation. This
Yeah.
was really juicy.
Uh-huh.
And thank you so much for going with me on my little thought spirals. Um, I don't know why it happens, but you create that space in me for me to just kind of share. And I know there's a lot of people that can relate to what we're both sharing, and I hope that
Mhm.
they get some tips from it. But thank you so much.
Well, welcome to the playground.
Right? Okay, between the
Oh,
sandbox or the monkey bars,
yep.
we're gonna build a rocket ship.
Let's do it.
All right, my love. I will talk to you soon, and thank you so much for being here.